Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 310 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is David Howe.
My name is Summer Rain.
Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest joining on today's episode of the show. We've got the wonderful game developer, Chris Wade. How's it going, Chris?
Hey, it's going great. Happy to sit down and talk with y'all.
Absolutely. We're very excited to talk to you as well. Chris has a new game coming out called Big Hops. There is a demo currently out on Steam and a Kickstarter that, if I'm not mistaken, is in its last week right now of the Kickstarter, right? Yeah, so that's an upcoming 3D platformer. We're going to be talking all about Big Hops, the development process, some of the cool mechanics that are in this game, and some stuff in this game that I'd like to see all other games do. But we'll be getting into that in the main topic. Before that, we have a lot of news and rumors to get to this week. There has been confirmation about massive numbers of sales for the Switch 2. A Splatoon spin-off was announced out of nowhere. Very excited about that. And then by the time this episode comes out, there will have been a Nintendo Direct. We'll be talking about all of that and much, much more. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, how are we doing? Do we have a good week this past week?
Yeah, I had a great week. Very busy, but very good. I went to Denver to go visit some friends, and they had a jam-packed itinerary for us. They wanted to treat it like a convention, and boy, howdy, we were just busy the whole time. I went to Meow Wolf for the first time. That was really cool. Tried out the Final Fantasy XIV TTRPG, which, dare I say, really liked the battle system of that. Very enjoyable. Okay. And among many other things, I went hiking in the mountains, and that was super awesome. First time doing that in Colorado, but it's worth mentioning that I did it in full cosplay, in heels, in makeup, with my,
of course you did.
with my accordion. So literally would find like cliffs to go like perch and play Cass's theme while I was dressed as Cass. And most people would pass by and just kind of like smile and nod and be like, "That's cool." And then there was this group of 4 nerds that started freaking out when they heard the theme. And we're like, "Is Cass here? Is Cass here?"
That's so funny.
And that was pretty
I mean, if
cool.
I was like on a mountain or like in the forest and I heard that theme coming from a real accordion, I'd be like, "Wait, am I in the game right now?" Like, that's insane.
Literally,
Yeah.
literally snow-capped mountains, like in the right behind us, right? Like it was so cool. So,
That's great.
you know, we brought cameras and stuff, took like good photos and whatnot, and really looking forward to those. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. What about you, Chris? You have a good week?
Yeah, I had a busy week. I went to the No Kings protest on Saturday and was out all day, got a good sunburn, and then went hiking Sunday morning in Austin. I wish it was Denver on snowy mountains. That would be cool.
We don't really get snow on Mount Benelli here, do we?
But I'm doing good.
Nice. Yeah, I was also at the protest on Saturday. I went to like the Capitol at first. I think I got there around like maybe 6, and then stuck around afterwards to march around with like the youngs, you know, like all the young people basically like all started just kind of marching downtown, and that was really fun. That was like and really great. It was, you know, we were out till like about 10:30 or so. At least I was. We left before a lot of the people out there, but the cops definitely showed up and they had full riot gear and everything. But we were, fortunately, there was no violence, at least not while I was there. So that was good to see. They were pieces of shit, as they always are. No offense if you're a cop listening to this podcast. Actually, offense.
Full offense.
Offense if you're a cop listening to this podcast.
No cops listen to our podcast.
Yeah, if you're a cop listening to this podcast, you can just turn it off right now. Okay,
right?
This is the No Cops podcast. No, but it was really great. It was good to see people use their voice, and it was nice to be part of kind of like a big, massive thing, right? So that was really great to see as well. I'm glad that you were able to make it out as well, Chris. Let's talk shout-outs before we get into some of the news. We had a couple really great comments on our YouTube channel. Wanted to shout them out. JC Redfang, once again, left a comment wishing the Game Boy a 24th birthday. Could you believe that? I guess that happened last week. We forgot to bring that up, but you know, what? I don't know what. Also, is that true? I don't know. It feels older than that. Anyway, either way, the Game Boy's old, and so are we. Also, JC Redfang said that he's been loving his Switch 2. Mario Kart World has been amazing, but honestly been stuck on Fantasy Life I. Hatstack Mike also said that they've been loving their Switch 2 as well. Mario Kart World is awesome. I hope they keep adding more content through updates, as well as stuff like being able to switch between songs in free roam and even make playlists. I agree with you, Hatstack Mike. I think that, I think one of the biggest missed opportunities of that game is there's no radio when you're driving around. It would make total sense in free roam to be able to change radio stations and listen to different songs as you go.
Make it like GTA.
There's a lot of stuff that I wish that Mario Kart World did, but we'll maybe save that for a future episode. I am very much still enjoying the game.
They have all the deep cuts too. Like,
it
could make the best radio in a game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of the greatest soundtrack of all time. I cannot wait for the 20-disc vinyl box set to come out. I'll drop about $4,000 on that whenever that comes out, but we'll have to see.
Not to actually a shout out. It's the Game Boy Advance that came out 24 years ago.
There we go.
So
a worthy
worse. That's even worse.
Yeah,
very close.
That does make me feel
believe
older.
me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No,
Also, happy 24th birthday to Circle of the Moon, Castlevania game. That was a launch title for that system as well. And people say that's the worst Game Boy Castlevania. I disagree. I love that game. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's move on. But before we do, I just want to say, if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube. We do a video version of the podcast on YouTube where you can see our beautiful faces. So we would love a subscribe over there, and share the show with a friend. Just word of mouth does wonders. Also, if you could post a comment or share the show on Reddit or on social media anywhere, we would very much appreciate that. We'll have links to our social media profiles in the bottom of the description of this episode, and we'll also give links to our handles at the end of the show. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the news, because there is some big stuff. As we talked about last week, essentially with a bit of leaks and speculation, the Switch 2 is selling hotcakes. Ladies and gentlemen, the official word has come out from Nintendo that within the first 4 days of the Switch 2 being out, it has sold 3.5 million units. Now, I'm sure that has sold even more at this point. That was just the first 4 days, although it's obviously going to drop off a little bit because, they run out of stock. And I think it's, finally getting now the point a couple weeks on where it's a little bit easier to find one. I know Costco is getting restocks and stuff like that. But, we covered a lot of this last week when we talked about the alleged 3 million units sold. But what do you guys think? I mean, 3.5 million units first week. This is not only the biggest Nintendo launch of all time, as Nintendo said in their Nintendo Today app, but also the biggest console launch ever. You guys have any thoughts on this?
I don't know. I'm just amazed. I'm like simultaneously surprised at the number of people that I know that got it, and also the people that didn't get it, if that makes sense. And I'm like, but I'm also noticing, and a lot of the people that didn't get it are like, okay, maybe I am going to get it like in the next month, because we can't shut up about it.
Yeah. Well, we're on the Nintendo podcast, so that makes sense.
I also mean like in my day-to-day,
Absolutely.
Right. Just like seeing friends, even at work, like people are asking me like, okay, you got the Nintendo Switch 2, like, can you tell me about it? And I'm like, I sure can. Yeah. It's in my bag right now. Do you want to see it? Yeah.
Chris, have you picked up a Nintendo Switch 2 yet?
I did. Yeah. I got one on the first day, and I didn't pre-order anything. And the main thing I wanted to say was I was very impressed how they were able to keep it so stocked everywhere.
Yeah.
I went at, I think, 11 a.m., the day of launch, to like a Best Buy near me, and they had dozens of the non-Mario Kart bundle left, and there was no line. And that's not a dig. It was just people were having such an easy time getting them. So I was impressed, and I'm really glad for it. Like, it's good business for me if there's a lot of them out there. So
yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder like how many other, because almost every game system, when they release on launch day, they sell out, because it's always the hardcores go out and buy it, right? And so the Wii U sold out, right? But it's like, how many consoles would have hit this number if they actually put 3.5 million units like out in stores, like I think that just goes to show that Nintendo really was like, we want to get ahead of this tariffs thing. I think that, going in since like That's January or so, they were probably already shipping millions of these units to the US specifically so they could sit in these warehouses and not be affected by tariffs in the future, right? So I think it makes a lot of sense to be interesting, I mean, it's harder to do this with like a PS5 with the huge above head cost of a system like that. It's a little easier with these Nintendo systems that are usually a little cheaper to create, and they're not taking so much of a loss on each unit. But that's just a little bit of interesting trivia there about the launch of the Nintendo Switch. Congratulations to them. We'll have to see if that is going to maintain into the future, and if that means that it will sell as much as the original Switch. I highly doubt it. Moving on. Splatoon Raiders was announced. Can you believe it? Holy smokes. This came out of nowhere. I'm a big Splatoon fan. Nintendo dropped, I think on their Today app, or maybe it was on socials. I'm not exactly sure. But it was a teaser for...
It was in their app, yeah.
Yeah, it was in their app.
I remember getting the push notification for it, and I was literally like getting off the train, and I'm like watching it as I'm like walking with a crowd of people like getting off the train.
Yeah. Everybody's on their phone looking at Splatoon. It's a nationwide phenomenon. It
is kind of like in like the universe of Splatoon to be doing that, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
To be getting off of the train, like watching like Splatoon news.
Right. I mean, this was kind of a story trailer, but not even really. It's very much a tease. You can't really tell like what style of game this is, but it is a Splatoon spinoff, as it says, which is very exciting. It's starring Off the Hook, or is it Deep Cut? I forget which one is which.
Deep Cut is the new group.
That's my bad. I always forget the names of the actual groups. I know all the characters' names.
Everyone is still just so obsessed with Pearl and Marina.
Yeah.
Too. That's all they want to think about.
That's me.
It.
Yeah, you have described me. But but this came out, this trailer, no release date, but at least we know it's coming. I imagine we'll be hearing about that a little bit later this year. And then also at the end of that, they said that they will be updating Splatoon 3. So Splatoon 3 got a, one of these kind of quiet Nintendo Switch 2 updates that increases resolution, increase the frame rate, I believe, like in the city areas and stuff like that. So that's really nice to see. There's a new Splatoon 1 stage and some new weapons as well. Chris, are you a Splatoon fan? Have you ever played this game?
I played the first one a good amount, and I would say I'm more of like the story side of the games. And I don't know, I'm psyched that Nintendo just is going to be dropping random stuff through that app. This one was on a Tuesday. It felt so like weird and random and separate from a direct. I hope there's more surprises like that coming.
Yeah, it makes our job a little more difficult, but it's okay. We'll handle it while we can. Summer, what about you? Have you opened up Splatoon 3 since this update?
I have, and I like many others have voiced in our community. I was also kind of like jump scared by how smooth the logo was when it loaded up.
Yeah, the loading screen with the bubbles moving at 60 FPS took me by surprise.
All of that being so smooth was just kind of, it just boggled my brain a little bit. But yeah, like I was excited about all the new weapon combos too. Had to try a bunch of them out. Excited to. I'm always happy for another reason for this game to like pick up a little more steam among our friends and get into it again. Like this is such a good game for that, and just anything new to stir up hype for it is just fun for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I love Splatoon. I'm more of a multiplayer Splatoon player. I think every time I try to get into the single player, be it any of the DLC expansions or just like the main single player campaigns in each of the games, I always end up putting them down. It doesn't really hold my attention the same way that the ADHD part of my brain just loves the little 3-minute matches and get going for it every single time. But definitely excited for Splatoon Raiders, and I will be picking this up whenever that comes out, as long as it's not like, I don't know, terrible. I don't know. We'll have to see. But anyway, that's it for that bit of news. Also, another announcement from Nintendo that caught us by surprise is this Wednesday, the day that this episode comes out, there will be a Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct. This seems to be the way that Nintendo is doing Switch 2 releases, at least the big name ones at this point. They did the same thing with Mario Kart World. A 15-minute direct is what we're going to be looking at this Wednesday. Obviously, if you're, listening to this episode, then it has already come out. So you're probably aware of what's in this, as long as you're not trying to go in completely blind to Donkey Kong Bonanza. So we're not going to spend too much time speculating as to what could be in here. But I do think that this opens up the question as to when we're going to be actually getting a general Nintendo Direct. Usually in the June time is when we see the big slate of what's going to be coming out for the rest of the year. There's still lots of holes in the schedule for the rest of 2025. So it's kind of hard to say exactly when we're going to see that. Do you have any thoughts on a general Nintendo Direct or just Donkey Kong Bonanza in general, Summer?
I think that this trailer or this Direct will probably kind of determine if I get this game at launch. I've not really been a Donkey Kong person in the past. I will say that the Treehouse coverage of this did get me kind of hyped for it. And then obviously teasers about Pauline being in it got me hyped for it. So whatever happens in this Direct, I think will determine if this is a launch title for me.
Yeah. I agree. I think we'll probably get the full official reveal of young Pauline in this Direct, I would imagine.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so, probably. It was.
Do you want to bet on it?
Sure. Yeah. What do you want to?
Oh, is this the kind of podcast this is?
Yeah. This is brought to you by DraftKings.
Let's go.
Oh man.
Not really. Please pay us now that I've mentioned your company, DraftKings. But no. But I mean, I think someone else that I was watching brought up the fact that Mario Odyssey had their own Direct, and it was only in that Direct after the official announcement that the Cappy mechanic was revealed. So I feel like there's going to be something similarly revealed in this. Maybe they'll tell us who's making this game. Probably not. But I'm a huge Donkey Kong fan. I'm very excited for any kind of 3D platformer, especially first party Nintendo 3D platformers. Chris, what about you? Are you a Donkey Kong fan? Are you excited for this?
I'm super psyched for this one. I think when they showed the first trailer for it, within 1 second before Donkey Kong was revealed, I was like, "This is the Mario Odyssey team."
Yeah, you could just tell.
Right?
Right?
I was so psyched about it, and for me, this is definitely the killer app that got me to buy the thing, and I'm really hopeful and definitely expecting some kind of big reveal in the Direct for the same reason you're saying. That's what they did with Odyssey, and it also feels like, from what they've shown so far, the gameplay looks great and the world looks great and the mechanics are really cool, but it does feel like something's missing, some twist on it to make it even more exciting, maybe.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see. And I think that, I wouldn't say that a summer Direct is out of the question, but I think it makes sense for them to push a general Direct a little further into the summer, especially given that the system just came out, so I think that if I were a betting man, which we have established that we are, I would say July for a general Direct. And probably I would say a week after this comes out. So you heard it here first. Sure. If that happens, everybody has to buy me a Coke. All right. Moving on to a little bit of Nintendo Switch 2 news. And this involves limited run games. So some of you may be familiar with a friend of the show, MVG, and his Carbon engine, which has been used in a lot of limited run games releases to kind of port classic games to modern consoles. One of them is the Gex Trilogy, which actually just came out, I think, today or maybe the day before. Very recently, the Gex Trilogy came out. That is one of these limited run games that uses the Carbon engine that unfortunately does not work on the Nintendo Switch 2 at all. This game will not boot. And I think most of the limited run games that use this engine do not work on Switch 2. Limited Run has said that they know exactly what the problem is. It's basically one line of code that keeps videos from playing. It's they made it specifically for the Switch, and then it doesn't exactly port to the Switch 2. So they've put out I think updates to a lot of these games. Specifically, they have one already sent to Nintendo for Gex. So by the time you're listening to this, it might have already been pushed through by Nintendo, but they're kind of notoriously slow with getting updates out, especially for these smaller publishers. So
Sure.
we'll have to see, how long this actually takes. But I think people are a little upset that this game is being sold on the eShop on Switch 2, and it says it's compatible with Switch 2 right there on the eShop, right?
Yeah.
So there's a couple issues with that, and people are a little upset.
Yeah, that they have every right to be upset because as of right now, the games that are on the website of like that they're still figuring it out. They're not adding them to the eShop until they know that they can get it running on the Switch too. I was just like culling my wish list the other day. Now that that's more accessible when you go to the eShop on the Switch too.
Yeah, that is a lot better. Yeah.
And I was just like looking through it, like looking for things to remove, and noticed that a couple of titles said not available. And I was checking through and seeing that, it's because these games are not playable yet on the Switch too. Just other thing that is interesting about this too, I am actually hearing about some games that if you have the physical cart, they'll run okay. Versus like some of the games that are on the list of ones that aren't running. So it's like the whole situation's all over the place.
Yeah. I know. And Chris, I want to get your thoughts on this as well, because I know you're currently making a game that will be releasing on Switch and Switch 2, but like, it's Nintendo is using emulation, right? For running Switch 1 games on Switch 2, right? That don't have bespoke Switch 2 versions. So I think for the most part, it actually has been really great. Like, I think these are outliers. I think the majority of games that I've tried have just like innate performance boosts and all this kind of stuff, like running on Switch 2. It really utilizes the whole thing. I know Pikmin 3 is another game right now. It's a first-party Nintendo game that it's not unplayable, but it does have some visual glitches and bugs. So not everything is a perfect one-to-one, but with your development, Chris, like with your working on right now, are you like, is there different specs when you're kind of developing for Switch 1 and 2, or is that something that's kind of not even on your radar at this point?
I actually don't have a kit yet. So we're still talking to Nintendo, and the word is like they're focusing on games that are coming to Switch 2 first, or rather games that only can be on Switch 2 first, which I think totally makes sense as a third-party strategy. And we're focusing on Switch 1 and making it run well there. And obviously, as soon as we get the kit, it's going to be like a priority to make it run really well there, and also see what we kind of get out of it. And without hardware to test on, you're just going off specs the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
And making guesses about it.
Yeah. If I could give you a piece of advice, and I'm a piece of shit nobody, but the one thing that I have noticed with a lot of these games that end up performing a lot better on Switch 2 without even needing a Switch 2 port is games that have like dynamic resolution, right? The ones that are in uncapped frame rates, right? The stuff that basically where it starts to get really intense and the resolution drops on Switch or whatever. When you're playing on Switch 2, that just stays up at whatever it's at. And I know even, for instance, one of the games that is very funny that it worked out this way, but Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, for some reason, that game, when the Switch was in handheld mode, pushed out 1080p, even though the Switch only had a 720p screen. So that caused performance issues on Switch 1. It was a problem with the game. That was a mistake that the developers made that they never fixed. But it kind of like secretly now is like a native Switch 2 game, because when you play it in handheld mode, it actually plays at 1080p on the 1080p screen and, runs at 60 FPS because I had an uncapped frame rate. So so it's little stuff like that you could push through in your code. That's all I'm saying. Just consider
it. A little piece of trivia for people listening: our previous game, Sausage Sports Club, was a Switch 1 game, and you can play it on Switch 2, and it runs better than it runs on Switch 1. But sort of as an optimization for us, we kind of fixed the resolution in handheld mode to be a little bit less than the 720. And so playing on Switch 2, like it's still kind of fixed to that lower resolution, and it's basically up to us to release a patch or an updated version that is aware that it's running on Switch 2. So I don't know this for sure, but I got to imagine that Nintendo's internal kind of, publishing like QA team that tests patches and stuff is really overwhelmed right now.
Oh, I'm sure.
People trying to do this. And if you don't have a kit, the best thing you can do is like make a guess about how to detect if it's going to be a Switch 2 or not, which is frustrating.
Yeah. And you don't want to put something out that is going to like be a patch for Switch 2 and then all of a sudden the performance is really bad because you don't actually have something to really test it on, and then you got to put out another patch, right? So I can only imagine it's a bit, shouting fire in a crowded theater right now. Everybody kind of scrambling to do what they can, but I'm sure it'll all suss itself out. This is early days. I think it's great and amazing that most of these Switch 1 games just work right out of the box on the new system to begin with. Although I really wish Nintendo would put in a toggle that let me play games in docked mode while handheld on Switch 2, because I think that would kind of instantly, a lot of games go from 720 to 1080. Being able to play 1080 handheld would be amazing, right? So
very interesting.
Yeah, I think that would be a really nice feature to have on the Switch, but I get why they don't have it because touchscreen functionality, but we already talked about that a little bit last week, so we'll go ahead and move on. We got a little bit of more news to get through here, so moving on. The MIG Switch, this is kind of just a PSA. If you're not familiar, the MIG Switch is sort of a flashcard of sorts for the Switch 1. You're able to put an SD card in the system, pop it in and out, and then it basically will play, quote unquote, personal backups of your games. Obviously, a lot of people are using this for piracy, right? Nintendo has said that if they find pirated copies of games that they will ban your system, and people are now seeing that their Switch 2s that they put the MIG Switch into are getting banned. There's at least a couple alleged reports of people that used the MIG on their Switch 2s and then had messages from Nintendo basically being like, this account is banned from being used online. So even if you're using your own personal copies, it seems that Nintendo has put something in their system that looks for this device, or at least can see what's on it, and basically, is making good on their word that's in their EULA to actually ban some of these accounts from being able to go online. So not that I think that any of our listeners are giant Switch pirates, but be careful out there. If you own a MIG Switch and you own a Switch 2, I would avoid putting that in your system altogether because it seems, at least from the few reports that I've heard, this is an issue. Are either of you Switch pirates? Do I need to hold any of you culpable for thievery of software?
That stuff's way too complicated for me. I do have a funny piracy story about our last game, Sausage Sports Club. The PC version was pirated by some group. It was like put up on one of those websites, and I went and downloaded it because I was curious. And the most enraging thing ever that has happened to me as a developer was that they had modified the executable of the game to put their website's logo as our loading icon.
Oh my God. Unbelievable.
Like overlaid over the like little cute animal character or whatever. And I don't care if people pirate my games personally.
Right.
Because I understand everyone's, in a different situation, and if they could afford it, they would buy it. And if they like it, they'll probably tell their friends and stuff. But that was the one time that I sent many very angry emails to their website and threatened legal action and stuff. And that was a memorable moment. Yeah,
well, I mean, if your game can't even be used as like free advertising for your studio or whatever, then that's kind of that's a little malicious. I'd never heard of that ever happening before. So good on you for laying down the hammer there. And I'm sorry to hear that happened to you.
That's so shitty.
I'm over it now. That was a good years ago.
Yeah, I feel you though. I mean, I'm kind of the same, and we'll get to some of this with when we get to copyright stuff. But it's like, I'm a filmmaker, and it's, I have downloaded many movies in my day, so it would be very hypocritical of me to ever go after anybody for pirating anything I've ever made. But anyway, that's my opinion. Moving on real quick to SAG-AFTRA. As a lot of you know, the SAG-AFTRA, which is the Actors Union for screen and I guess also video games, was on strike while they were trying to reach an agreement with all the big kind of video game publishers, the big AAA publishers out there. And that strike has ended. They have reached a tentative agreement with the big studios and publishers, and people can all start acting in video games again, which is really great news. It's really great to hear that they were able to make off with some of the things that they wanted. I know that your game, Big Hops, and I know we keep jumping ahead to Big Hops, but I think that's okay, utilizes SAG voice actors. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, that's right. And we were fortunate to be able to sign kind of a intermediary agreement in the middle of the strike so that we could work with SAG actors and I don't know, the terms that they're asking for, especially as they relate to AI and stuff like that, are really easy to, say yes to. And it's, most of it, to my understanding, is just to protect actors' rights to their own voice and performance and stuff. And I don't know, it was an easy thing to sign. And I'm so glad that the strike is ending, and I hope they get all the protections they want.
Yeah, I agree as well. There's a lot more we could say about this. I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't know all the details of the agreement, obviously, but this is two big wins for unions in the past couple weeks within the video game industry, with the ZeniMax union also reaching a tentative agreement there with Microsoft. So it's really good to see some more labor wins here because we know we could use it right now. And speaking of AI, there has been more in the news about that, and that is that Disney and Universal are some of the first big companies that are suing Midjourney for copyright infringement. So this has been something for a while that it's like, if anything is going to happen with AI, the big dogs are going to have to come in and actually force the hand of these AI models that are kind of scraping not only big companies' copyrighted imagery, but the works of small artists and pretty much everything on the internet, right? So I think that this isn't exactly video game related, but it's definitely something that is going to have ripple effects down the road when it comes to generative AI use in video games, what can and can't be used and then be copyrighted and trademarked itself, right? I think that these are all things that will be ongoing conversations that start with this lawsuit. Do any of you have any thoughts on this Summer? Like, NBC Universal and Disney actually going after Midjourney. This is a pretty big move.
Yeah. I think however it happens is a win. Obviously, like, don't ever want to cheer for a big corporation, but like, I'm so tired of hearing about it. Whatever gets it to stop.
Yeah.
Make it stop. If this is how it happens, like, so be it.
It seems really obvious that they're breaking the law and they're doing it on purpose. And the kind of complaint or defense I see the most is that, like, their business model doesn't work if they're not allowed to do it. And that's a very bad reason to let them do it. So I hope they get taken to the cleaners.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. I've got kind of complicated feelings on this as well. I mean, obviously, I'm no big fan of generative AI as somebody who works in the animation industry. I think that a lot of our jobs are very immediately threatened by this kind of thing, right? Especially the video generation tools. I think that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. There's a lot of these like image to video generators that you can do right now. And that is scary for the big copyright holders. I am no fan of current copyright law. I think that copyright law, as listeners of the podcast will probably know, originally was created to have an 8-year, I think it was 7 or 8 year lifespan on trademarks and copyrights. And it was basically enough time for you to profit off of your work, and then it gets released into the public domain. I still think that is better than holding a copyright for several lifetimes or whatever it is that Disney lobbyists have actually made happen over the years. It's kind of a complete 180 or a perversion of the original intent of copyright law, as far as I'm concerned. That said, though, I think that you have to pick your battles. You know what I mean? And this is something that it's like, especially over this weekend, there's been a lot of conversations about this between, liberals and leftists on like, what's the best way to like fight against like this rise in fascism or whatever. And sometimes you got to like use the tools that you have. Right. And so I think that, the giant corporations utilizing these copyright laws, even though I disagree with a lot of how they're actually structured, I think is better in the long run. And I think that, a bunch of little people going against OpenAI or Sam Altman or something like that was going to be very hard to do in court, right? So I think these big giant corporations with, their deep pockets and, endless cavalcade of lawyers is really the best way to fight this fight. So I will be begrudgingly fighting on the side of Universal and Disney in this lawsuit, but we'll have to see how it shakes out. This is going to be a very interesting one to watch. And I promise listeners of the show, we will eventually do an episode about AI and video games, but I keep putting it off because I just don't want to talk about it, but we'll have to at some point.
You don't have to talk about it.
No, we have to. We have to. It's like a big. We can't
have to.
You can't put your head in this. You can't ostrich this one. But
something you could do is ask a AI to make the episode.
No, that's enough. That's enough. You're off the podcast. No, I'm joking. That's almost it for the news. But I did want to take a small moment here to bring back a segment that we have done historically. Every time there's a Steam Next Fest, or at least every time I'm able to, we have a little segment of the show we like to call David's Steam Next Fest Corner. And I wanted to shout out a couple of the amazing games that I was able to play over this past week and this past Steam Next Fest. So, Maestro, hit the music. We're going to rapid fire through some of these. First, I want to talk about Aero Machina Test Flight. This is a 3D platformer that has you play as a sort of fox or a rabbit or something, but you're also sort of a plane. And it's got these kind of aesthetics where it's like a fighter jet HUD and everything like that. It's kind of like a blend of like a cool 3D platformer Metroidvania mixed with like Ace Combat or something like that. I was in love with this. This is a full prequel demo to the full game that'll be coming out later this year. So Aero Machina, make sure you check that one out. Another game I played was Azarand, Islands of the Jinn. Not much to say about this one other than it is indie Ocarina of Time. That's right. This is essentially an Ocarina of Time like. It is straight up ripping off everything about Ocarina of Time, and that is something that I wish more indies would do unabashedly. Take what works out of your favorite games and just make it your own. I think that's so cool. Put that one on your radar. Tamashika, or Tamashka, however you want to pronounce it. This is a new game from Edgelord, which is a creative collective, which is in part run by Harmony Korine, the filmmaker. They have made a couple movies, and I think this is their first full video game. This is a weird first-person shooter that has this strange kind of rapping floor mechanic, and it's like a Twitch shooter. This one did not stream very well. People were telling me that the bitrate was not kind to this game, but this was a ton of fun on my Steam Deck, especially with gyro controls. Check that one out. The next two games I played were both done with clay graphics, that being Platypus Reclayed, which is a 2D side-scrolling shmup, and All Living Things, which is a bespoke, handcrafted puzzle game made entirely out of clay and claymation. Both of those games are definitely worth checking out. Mina the Hollower, the new game from Yacht Club, is much anticipated. Demo for this is pretty hearty, and I was very excited to play this, being a fan of Link's Awakening and the Oracle of Seasons and Ages games. I was very excited, at least in the demo, to find that this game was much more Oracle of Seasons than Ages, and that being much more action and platforming than puzzle solving. That really tickled my pickle. Next, Morsels, which is a top-down Binding of Isaac-like. I say that because a lot of people say that they're doing roguelikes, and then I bounce off them because all I want is more Binding of Isaac, and god damn it, this gave it to me. This game has a really cool, drippy, gross aesthetic. Kind of reminds me of the art design behind Nidhogg 2, which was another great sleeper hit. But definitely check out Morsels. This one is also coming to the Switch. And finally, I wanted to give a shout out to Easy Delivery Co., which is a Death Stranding type game, kind of mixed with the aesthetics of Animal Crossing and some low-fi, low-poly depression core aesthetic. I don't know what you would call this, but this is a fascinating game where you pick up packages, put them in the back of your truck, and drive them to people in this small town. This is a delight to play, and I can't wait for all of these games to come out. This has been David's Steam Next Fest Corner.
That was a great list. I just installed like 5 of those. And I played another 3 of them. Let's
go. During that time, very happy to hear that. No, a big fan of Steam Next Fest. If you haven't yet, I would definitely wish list all these games and then check out which ones are coming to Switch, because a lot of these are also coming to Switch. But with that all out of the way, we're going to go ahead and take a small break before we move on to the main attraction of this episode, the headlining indie game that has a demo out on Steam right now, that being Big Hops with the developer Chris Wade, right after this break.
Let's go.
Hello, everybody. We're back. We are back with Chris Wade, who is the lead developer, is that fair to say, on Big Hops. Your studio is called Luckshot Games. And as we talked about before, you previously made a game called Sausage Sports Club. But before we get into all about Big Hops and a lot of the Kickstarter and everything that's going on. I'd love to hear a little bit about you, Chris, how maybe you got into this field and anything you'd like to say about Big Hops as a game in general.
Yeah, to get into my background, I kind of had I would say it's like the boring default way that people get into games now. I went to college when I was 18 to a school called DePaul in Chicago, and if you're like super in the weeds of like game, the origins of games, like the one you would know from DePaul is Octodad, and I was starting as the Octodad team was kind of leaving, and I studied there, like learned game programming and did a lot of like game design, sort of make a game within one course or whatever over 10 weeks, and just like learned a lot there. And kind of while I was still in school, I got ingratiated with a co-working space in Chicago that I'm forgetting the name of now. The Indie City Co-op was the name of it, and it was like 5 or 6 like small indie teams who kind of had broken off of Chicago game studios like Wide Load and Iron Galaxy, and they ended up making games like Oregon Trail and Battleship Brigade and Project High Rise, and the Octodad team was kind of down the hall, and so I got to know some of the people in this co-working space from like meetups in the city, and eventually was able to like work there over one summer as like a student kind of fellow, and got to know the teams there and started like contracting on people's games as like a part-time programmer and stuff, and just learned so much from them, and started Sausage Sports Club while I was still in school, and kind of was trying to follow in their footsteps of like running a small business and developing an indie game and figuring out how to market it and figure out how to get it on consoles and onto Steam and stuff. And I took the game around to different PAXs and, just really did the whole gamut of like what the marketing advice at the time was, and had an awesome time. And the Chicago game scene is really amazing and was so supportive of the game and me and everything. So I'm really grateful for that experience. And around the time the Sausage Sports Club was done, I was kind of running out of money. And so I got an offer. Somebody recommended me for this job working at Alchemy Labs, a VR studio who's known for like Job Simulator, and they had just been acquired by Google, and they like made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I moved to Austin, and I'm still in Austin, and I worked at Alchemy for like 3 years doing VR games and being kind of like a senior designer on Vacation Simulator, which was like the sequel to Job Sim, and had a great time there. And that kind of leads into the story of Big Hops.
Yeah, that's really great. Maybe we could talk a little bit about Big Hops. So I think, definitely worth saying right off the bat, and we mentioned this before, there is a Kickstarter for this game right now. I'd like to get into a little bit of what that has been like for you and kind of how much you have left. But before that, can you like just describe Big Hops? Like what's your elevator pitch and maybe some special things about the game that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so Big Hops is a 3D platformer where you play as a frog and you use your tongue to kind of interact with the world, swing around, and solve puzzles. And there's kind of 3 like feature pillars of the game. One of them is like using your tongue to kind of interact with stuff. Another one is a really deep movement system, and I kind of describe this as like froggy parkour, where you can like wall climb and ledge grab, and you've got like a really deep system of like rolling and jumping and diving, and you can use these things like in coordination with each other to move really fast, but also like chain that with wall runs and chain that with using your tongue to swing around. So high momentum. If you're familiar with, most of your listeners are going to know Mario Odyssey or Hat in Time, and it adds into that kind of like Breath of the Wild elements and maybe some like Prince of Persia Sands of Time stuff. So it's, we're pulling references from everywhere. And I definitely want people to take away that the way that they combine like feels really unique. So, and then, sorry, I forgot to mention those are the things that people are going to see the game and take away from it, like immediately from our trailers. But I think the underlying coolest part of it, that once people play it, they're going to take away from it, is we have this unique interaction paradigm veggies that you find in the world, and you can like hold them and like throw them at the wall or at the ground, and you like build different kinds of paths forward. An example of which is like a mushroom that when you throw it, it creates a bounce pad, or an acorn creates like vines that you can climb up and they like grow to wrap around walls and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, the vine in particular, I was like really impressed by when I was playing it. How many vines can you have out at once, by the way? This is me just now asking for tips with the game.
So far, as many as you can.
Okay, I love that.
Oh,
I love that.
So it's not like the mushrooms that disappear after you've used them a couple of times.
No, and
the vines stay.
We are going to need to limit those. Like right now,
no need.
I have a screenshot where somebody made like 100 of them, and I'm just like, looking at their graphics card like, oh, please.
Yeah, see, that's where a Switch 2 dev kit would be helpful. Yeah. But
yeah, you can leave 100 vines on the Switch 2.
Yeah. No, but I mean, but yeah, those vines, for instance, it's kind of like all of a sudden you can sort of build your own pathway through some of these levels, which I thought was really cool. And kind of like, it's giving like some of that, there's like kind of a big swath of like games that, reward creativity, right? And reward like different sorts of playthroughs. And I imagine that would also be really cool for speedrunning as well, seeing the different ways that people can play with this game. But now I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm just really excited to talk about this game because I really enjoyed the demo. But yeah, like you said, I think one of the first things that really stuck out to me with this game was the climb on anything mechanic that, I mean, hopefully you don't mind me saying, obviously we all kind of associate with Breath of the Wild, right? And that kind of like open, the ability to climb on anything is one of those things that I've been saying for a really long time that everybody should just put in every game. It's like, obviously you can't because you have to design for it, and you can't just like, you have to like make geometry that is like, going to allow for that. But it's Absolutely. Like, I think that every game should have the ability to climb on everything, and every game should have Kong letters from Donkey Kong. I've been saying that forever. It's like everybody should just take those two mechanics and put them in every game.
Excellent.
But this is one of the first games that I've played that I can think of that like kind of does that mechanic and does it well. I feel like everybody is still kind of like so constrained in so many of their worlds with, invisible walls, or, oh, hey, there's this area that I should very easily be able to go up, but the game is like not letting me for some reason. And it just makes you feel so restricted when you play a lot of games, I mean, obviously you can build that into your game design and have it work, and that's part of the game's language. But I was just so pleased to see how well you guys incorporated that into this game. And then particularly, because it's not a super long, you can't climb as long as you can in Breath of the Wild, at least not in this demo. Maybe you'll get upgrades. I'm not going to ask for spoilers on this episode necessarily. But what I loved about this was the kind of the easy transition between going from the wall climb straight into the wall run, and then kind of chaining jumps then together and everything like that. Can you tell us a little bit about like the fluidity of movement in this game? Because I found that to be one of the most satisfying parts of this demo.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something I'm the most proud of about it. I'm like the gameplay designer programmer. So I'm in there messing with all the game feel and stuff. And I have been for the last 6 years. That's something I should have mentioned earlier, is this game's been in development for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of like where it's at now is the result of just like endlessly tuning and tweaking and like never giving up on making it as perfect as possible. Mm-hmm. And there's still more stuff I want to change. We have a big list of like tweaks that might take me an afternoon to do, but if I get to make the next 20 of them on my list, like it'll be even better. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think it's just like an obsessive nature that I have to try to make it as good as I can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of games that I play that what I really yearn for is that just being able to run around without any goal in mind. And it's just fun to move, and it's fun to, like Odyssey, I think Mario Odyssey was probably the master of that, right? Like I booted that up recently because, it got a, kind of one of these quiet upgrades, runs much better on the Switch 2, and it's a higher resolution and all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't even doing it. I just got lost for like an hour, just like running around and throwing my hat and just kind of like moving and using my momentum and stuff. And I think that any game that can kind of nail that down, I think right off the bat, like I'm going to be purchasing. You know what I mean?
That That was a goal. That was a goal when I was building the game initially. The first like year and a half or 2 years was I was still at Alchemy, sort of working there, and then on my evenings and weekends, I was like grinding on Big Hops. And in that time, I think at that time I had seen the Ask what is the interview series, like Ask Iwata interview series, where they talked to Miyamoto about like Mario 64 and how with Mario 64, like all of the levels for that game came together in the last like 8 months of development or something. And up to that point, everybody was kind of just making mechanics and trying stuff out. And Mario was like in a gray box room and they were just making it feel really good. And they like didn't know what they could make as levels because they didn't have the mechanics like built or whatever. And for me, the first 2 years were just like hop in this weird prototype room, and there was like a lineup of all the veggies, and the room wasn't at all level shaped. It was sort of like blockouts with like different angled ramps and like slides and grapple swings and like things to interact with your tongue. And it was just like, and this wasn't, I wouldn't recommend this to people as like a game producer. Like, you're not going to make a fast game if you do it this way.
Right.
I was just like really just having fun, like trying to make really interesting, deep interactions and trying to make something fresh that, you know, is inspired obviously by all the Mario games, but also had its own ideas about where platforming stuff could go and really utilize like all the ideas that a frog tongue could facilitate really well. And, you know, all the people are going to be really surprised and go nuts when they get all the veggies at once, because, you know, having just mushrooms or having just acorns like is exciting and interesting. But when you have, there's like 15 of them in the game that are all at least as powerful as those, and you can combine most of them and you can have all of them in your backpack at the same time and like, you know, use all of them in one scene, and like, it gets really crazy. And emergence was always the goal. And I think recently we've kind of switched away from using the word emergent, and instead it's now more expressive. But chaotic is definitely a theme, and that is in the game for sure.
Yeah, I feel that's a Fabraz term, right? The expressive platformer, I think, is maybe something that they had coined. But there's definitely a lot of expression in this for sure. And that's good to know that. So am I understanding right that all those kind of the seeds and the plants that you can do, which are kind of your traversal items that we talked about, you can just you can store those in your backpack to pull out whenever you want. Is that the idea?
That's the idea. And there's also like shops in the game that you can go to, and there's like a machine that's like all the veggies you've discovered, and you can like buy them at any time and bring them with you. And there's also like this is, spoiler's not the right word, but I'm like giving you exclusive look into the future mechanics. There's a machine that lets you plant a seed and get like a little bush that you can then like throw at a wall and grow your own trees with that veggie anywhere. So you can bring, you know, instead of bringing like 5 veggies with you, you can bring like 20 veggies with you. And then additionally, there's a trinket that you get. It's like a gameplay modifying decoration for your backpack that lets you stack multiple of the same item in an individual backpack slot. So then you can get like, you know, let's say I have an acorn, I turn it into an acorn potted plant that could grow 4, and then I can stack 3 of those on one backpack slot. So now suddenly I have like 100 veggies available on me at one moment.
Whoa. Yeah, that sounds like fun. No, because the demo really does kind of show like, it's a good like opening demo, because I feel like it shows like a good number of the different styles of gameplay that will be in there. You know, you've got a little bit of story in there. You've got the kind of like using the seeds to get from point A to point B in a level. And then you also have kind of these like underworld levels or whatever. I don't know exactly what you'd call them when you go inside the portals, where it kind of goes into the Mario Galaxy style kind of we're playing with gravity and the spherical, whatever, you know. So I thought that was really great, but it does kind of like you kind of have a little taste of like what there could be. And that's really exciting to hear that you can combine items and stuff like that. That's something I'm really excited for. The game like feels incredibly polished for where it's at right now. I know you guys are like pretty close to the end of development. As you say in your Kickstarter, you've been working on this for 6 years. So I imagine that's where a lot of that polish comes from.
Yeah.
I have to ask, has this been your full-time job for the last 6 years? Is like working on this game?
So I mentioned I worked at Alchemy for the first 2 years of development, and I quit there kind of. I felt really confident in the game, and I knew we were going to need to seek funding to kind of finish it. And after about a year of like having left the job and working solo, we signed with a publisher. And I talk about on the Kickstarter page that we got dropped by our publisher at the beginning of this year. And the in-between of that is we spent about 3 years published with a partner paying for development of the game. And we were able to have like seven people working full-time that entire 3 years, and then a few like part-time kind of contractors. And so there's just a shitload of game, and like the work that kind of remains is all of it is done, and we're just like polishing it and making it better and fixing bugs. And the Kickstarter goes into like the QA and localization and the voice acting stuff. And it's so close, and we have a good sense of like it's about 15 hours long, and we have a good sense of like what the quality is and like where the pacing is weird. So we're like still tweaking that stuff, but that's the production update, I guess, about it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to have a publisher, it seems like that's probably the best time to have one, is early on, where you're able to spend a lot of time and experiment. Because I imagine at this point you'll be self-releasing this game when it eventually comes out, right?
Yeah, so our plan is definitely to self-publish, and the hard part of that's like marketing and doing as much as you can. And I don't know, we're just now that we're so close to the end, we're happy to take it on, and we're proud of the game, and we think it can stand up on its own. So,
did you self-publish Sausage Sports Club as well?
Yeah, that one was self-published, and that one was pretty different in that I sort of did all of the development work, and my game development partner Tom Duncan did all of the like audio, music and sound design of it. And the rest of the work was sort of like temporary contract work for like QA or like promo art and stuff. But I really built like most of that game. And with Big Hops, it's very much a team effort. And we still have 2 artists and a level designer and somebody kind of implementing all the cutscenes. And until recently, we had like another full-time programmer. So very, very much a team effort. I don't want to be that guy who's what happened at the Summer Games Fest. It was like solo dev plus 9 friends.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Did you see that one?
Yeah. Yeah. How it was like in several instances that were similar to that. Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is like the narrative going around the industry right now, is like, you can make Claire Obscure with 30 people and it makes $1 billion. So why would you ever have AAA teams of 400, And so it's like,
they've already come out and said that, like, even though the core team was like 33 people, they also had all these other people like working on it. Yeah.
They're like, not everything has to be 33 with us, guys. Please. Although it does seem to shake out that way. But yeah, no, it's definitely. And it's good that you guys were able to be bankrolled for a little bit at least, and have your bills paid, like, while you're able to work on this game. And it shows, I mean, I think that's like an incredible privilege that you had. And it's like, when you play the game, you feel it, it's like, not to poo poo any other game that like doesn't have like a big publisher, or at least a publisher at all, like paying for their development early on. But it's just like, you can tell that this was a full-time endeavor for you guys, and you put a lot of work into it. So that's really cool. I do have a question before we move on to some of the other stuff here, but just about how are the levels laid out? Because like I said, the demo kind of opens up and then stops. Is it more, are they like semi-open world environments, or is it more level based? Like, how would you say the kind of progression of this game is going to work?
Yeah, there's not really a game that's like particularly shaped like this one. It's like the overall structure of the game is there's like kind of 3.5 episodes, and the first episode is the forest, and you go through like several levels in sequence in the forest, and each of the episodes is structured in a similar way. And then in the desert, as an example, the ending of the demo, you kind of see this big open desert plains area, and it gives the impression that it's like very open and there's like a lot to do in the scene, and that's very true. But most of our scenes are more linear, and sometimes we like open up in that broad way, or there's like a village or a town that's got like a lot to explore. You could kind of think of Wind Waker in this way if you imagined instead of there was like an ocean, and you could definitely draw like lines describing like the path through Wind Waker, and like if you put all those levels in a line instead of one big sea, it would be somewhat similar to that shape.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I like that, and honestly, I'm there's a lot of open world games, so they don't all have to be open world.
Yeah, right? and I'll give you the deep context of it too. Like when we were building the game, like I really wanted to make a Dark Souls style like interconnected web of levels, and you could just go to any of them in any order. And it's both really hard to do that, but also like not necessarily conducive to the like storytelling that we're doing in Hops. And like from the demo, you can tell it's like the characters matter, their goals matter, where you're going, and the changes in the characters over time matter. And so in that way, it's sort of like a Psychonauts or like an Ocarina of Time, where like the plot and goals like are the things that are driving you to the next kind of gameplay interaction and through the next scene. And so a Dark Souls style world, where it's open and you can do whatever you want, and walk wherever, doesn't really match that and doesn't suit that kind of storytelling. So
yeah,
that's why it's that structure.
I mean, that's my problem with like Breath of the Wild, right? And don't get me wrong, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, those are some of the best games I've ever played. But it's like, as someone who like grew up with Zelda games and wrote Zelda fan fiction, which I've got over there, like that is, the story is so important to me. And I think that was one of the things I was really let down by in those games, is because it's just like kind of impossible to tell like a good, satisfying story that has a beginning, middle, and end with an arc and everything, when you can do whatever you want. And that's like, obviously that's a sacrifice that you can choose to make for that style of gameplay. And it totally worked. It's not like I don't like those games because of it, but it's just like knowing that you went into it with that in mind beforehand is interesting. And I guess it also kind of like brings up like the acting and the voice acting. And there's some acting in this demo. There's some voice acting in here. Are all the lines going to be eventually voiced, or is it like kind of like picking and choosing like for cutscenes with voice acting in this game?
No, we're planning to voice all the lines. Okay. And there's the last time I checked, there's like 4,000 lines of dialogue across more than 100 NPCs.
Oh wow.
And it's I don't know, it's quite an undertaking, but we did sort of, this was about a year ago, we did a test of VO at where up to that point it was sort of the Banjo-Kazooie style, like gibberish.
Yeah.
Not like that cartoony, but like in that direction.
Right,
and we did a test of like 10 minutes of the game. What if we put voice acting on this? And we just used like our friends and family to kind of fill that out. And it was like, wow, this raises the amount of engagement and like how I'm emotionally connecting with the characters so much that we were like, we have to do all of it. And it's kind of expensive. I don't know if you know about the process, but
I've worked with some voice actors in my day. Yeah.
So check out the Kickstarter, please.
yeah, absolutely.
We did hit our funding goal, so we're definitely going to do the full game voiced. But it's an undertaking, and it's definitely worth it for this game. So,
as I understand, you guys had an agreement with SAG-AFTRA even during the strike. Is that correct? Like, how did that end up working out? Did you reach out to SAG about that specifically? Like, how do you get an agreement like that? I've always kind of wondered.
So we have a really great like voice director partner for this game, and they had worked on projects previously where they needed to kind of work out this agreement with SAG, and I think it's called the Interactive Media Agreement is what we signed. And there's sort of, it's like built for this kind of case during the strike, and there's a predetermined set of terms, and you can like negotiate if you want, but we were just like yeah, we agree with everything you want. We agree with all the, the prices you want. And an interesting stipulation of the agreement was that each actor can only play 12 named roles, which for our game with over 100 characters, it was like, oh, we actually have to like kind of figure out how are we going to puzzle piece like people into 12 roles. So we don't need to hire, it'd be crazy to hire 50 people. But yeah, it was very easy to do, and we have good partners. So I love the SAG actors and partners we worked with so far. So
yeah, we love a union, man. Can I ask you about the music? Who do you have doing the music for this game?
This is Tom Duncan again, who did Sausage Sports Club and also did the game Battleship Brigade. And Tom has, like I said, we've been working on this for 6 years, and Tom was the first hire after we sort of did the publisher thing, but also like had been working on the game down low and in his part-time stuff while he was working a day job up through that time. So he's had a lot of time to cook, and I think the character and the charm that he brings to the game is like 30% or more of what defines it. Even though he's like, 10% of our team. So I'm super excited. We're going to do like a full mix and mastered OST, like same day as launch of the game. And there's it'll be a separate purchase, and it's something you can get on the Kickstarter as like one of the tiers. But Tom's just an incredible talent. And, I want everybody particularly to hear there's like mixtapes in the game that you can collect. They each come with several tracks, and there's like a sort of a Walkman-like mixtape player, but one of the mixtapes is called Sewer Jazz. And I love all of the tracks on Sewer Jazz. So I'm looking forward to people listening to those.
Wow. Nice. Summer's sister made a game called Sewer Rave. So those are pretty similar.
Yeah, that was my first trigger thought. I was like, ooh, sewer, anything with a sewer. In it.
We love sewer music in general. But no, that's great to hear. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that Kickstarter. Like we said, you guys have now hit your goal, which I guess was $40,000. Is that correct?
That's right.
And I'm looking at it right now. We're at 44,000. So we're getting real close to a stretch goal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about your experience with that? I mean, you did one of these for Sausage Sports Club as well, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm of two minds about Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. I'll start negative so we can go up. Kickstarter is so scary and anxiety inducing, and putting something out into the world and saying like, give me this amount of money or I will fail in front of all of my friends and everybody I know is so like nerve-wracking and anxiety inducing. Yeah. And with this one, it with Sausage Sports Club, it also like did well, and like it was always on track to hit its goal, and we didn't need to like pull any stunts to get there. And Hops were even luckier this time that it's done even better, and the game can kind of speak for itself for the most part. And it's been a joy to watch people play the demo and respond to the trailer and just compliment like every part of the game. And we're all just very grateful that it hasn't been like a crazy anxious experience this time around. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people have a bad time on Kickstarter, and also I'll say it seems like it's not a great time to do Kickstarter because I don't know if it's the summer, I don't know if it's like Summer Games Fest, but it seems like the attention economy is not on funding Kickstarter games right now. So
mm-hmm. Yeah, there was like a period, right, where I feel like all the Kickstarters were all like happening like within like a 5-year zone or something like that. But I don't know. It seems like you're doing pretty good. I mean, I think that like I've done a couple Kickstarters myself for film projects mm-hmm. and stuff like that. Even one for a comedy theater. But it was like you see always there's that first big push, right? And then there's usually just like zero growth for like the majority of it, right? It like kind of evens out, and then there's a big
bathtub.
Yeah, and then a big push at the end. Yeah, you've been there, so you understand how that goes. But it's like it seems like you guys have been pretty steadily working your way up. I mean, I'm sure, like you said, Summer Games Fest is going on. You guys were able to get a little bit of exposure in there. Was it Wholesome Direct? Was that?
Yeah, Wholesome was one. We actually like this was done very backwards, but we like had all of these marketing opportunities kind of line up and work out. And then like a week before the first one, or maybe 2 weeks, I was like, we should do a Kickstarter. And then it was really that soon that I was like, we should do a Kickstarter. And then it was like a week of nonstop work preparing the page and stuff. And it was like 2 or 3. The Kickstarter launched on a Sunday, and our Steam demo also launched on a Sunday. And those were both in coordination with the OTK showcase, like stream or whatever. And on the Friday before that, neither the Kickstarter nor the Steam demo had been approved by Kickstarter or Valve.
Right.
And so it was like, fuck, are we going to be able to do this at all? And we were talking to the different marketing partners about, like, the OTK people about, like, listen, we don't know if our Steam demo is going to be live. Like, here's like a link to itch.io that's not, I know this is lame, but like, what do we do? How do we do this?
Right.
And it just happened to be that like Saturday at like midnight, both Kickstarter and Valve were like, okay, we'll let you do it. And so it was, I don't know, it's like, huge peaks and low lows, and it's been a ride.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad to see you guys have made it already, and I really hope that more people check it out, because some of those stretch goals were definitely exciting to me. I'm a speedrunning fan. I don't know that I'm like a speed runner necessarily. I'm not like that dedicated to one particular thing. I can't quite bring myself there, although I really want to be. But the kind of like speedrunning tools being a stretch goal, I think was very exciting. And I think that's something that I'd love to see more developers do, like adding splits and whatever into their games in order to allow for that. And, obviously people are going to do that anyway in the scene. Yeah. And especially with a game like this, it's kind of like asking for it, with the expressiveness, like we kind of talked about. But I think just 3D platformers in general are kind of like where speedrunning kind of got its start, or at least really blew up with like Mario 64 and everything. Right. So it's really great to see that. So I really hope you guys hit that stretch goal selfishly. So we're doing our part getting it out here right now. But can you talk a little bit about the speedrunning scene? Like, is that something that you follow? Like, are you a GDQ fan? Has that been something you've had in mind when developing this game from the start?
Yeah, definitely. And it's been like a conversation since 6 years ago when we started. Like, the first kind of build of the moveset that I put in front of my friends, it was like, oh, this is going to be like a speedrunner thing. And I've always been really cautiously hopeful about it, like cautiously optimistic. And day one of the Kickstarter, there are like 10 kids in the Discord, our Discord, that are like speedrunning it. And they like had a speedrun.com leaderboard up within like a day or two.
Like, and demo percent or whatever.
Yeah, there's demo percent, bug percent, which is collect all the bugs and then finish the demo.
Okay. Yeah.
Somebody's been workshopping like a no jump percent, like the Mario like half A press or whatever.
Okay.
Which has been fun to watch.
Do you think that there could be a no plant percent? Like, you can't. I imagine you probably couldn't beat this game without plants, right? Like, I don't know. Like, do you think there is a way you think you could do it?
I think so.
What?
There's a couple. I don't want people to do this when they play the demo, but I'll tell you about it. If you like wall jump in corners that are kind of like 90-ish degrees, you can bounce back and forth enough to go up corners. And so
sick.
Routing is kind of like, where's the corner that I need to do this strategy? And then there's a lot of strategies for like, if you like feather the climb button as you're wall running along a very horizontal wall, you can go like very, very far horizontally. And
okay.
I think it's very possible to get through the whole game. And the hardest part is going to be like really long jumps where we expect you to use in the void. You were talking about the like purple weird gravity levels.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need a void berry to like reveal sections of the level, and like it's plausible that you could like somehow figure out how to do like a long enough jump. Like, if there's anywhere there's a grapple swing, if you have heart and you believe and you believe
Right.
hard enough, like you can really whip yourself. So
Yeah. Well, the momentum in this game, like there were definitely times I was running around. I was like, okay, let's see how fast I can get this fucker to fly. It's like, I really just want to like push it as far as I can. It's also cool that you are like aware of some of these exploits, and you don't have any intention of like patching these out or anything. Are you like happy to have places where you could break the game, like for people that want to find it?
For sure. I want to patch the things out that make the game less fun to play or less fun to watch. And the demo, when we shipped it, there was one, and this is still possible to do in some circumstances, but there was a exploit where if you dive into a wall and then jump off the wall backwards and then dive again, and the timing of this was really particular and kind of turn into people like mashing really fast, like the A and X buttons with their thumb at once,
Right?
and kind of doing like a weird motion. But you could go up pretty much any wall and like lose just a little bit of stamina. And I didn't make it impossible to do it, but I made it sort of like give diminishing returns of height as you continuously do it. So,
Right. So if you want to do it, you're going to have to really put the work in.
Yeah, you're gonna get a big callus on your thumb.
Yeah, that's what you deserve for being a sicko. Obviously I want to do the call to action to check out the Kickstarter. We'll have that link in the description of this episode. But man, it just really seems, we did an episode on this kind of recently, but really feels like we're in the golden age of 3D platformers right now. I think AAAs are finally coming around to it. Other than Nintendo, I mean, Nintendo's always been there making 3D platformers, right? But I mean, we had Astrobot win Game of the Year the other year, which was a huge move in the right direction for like the public consciousness. But I've been waving this banner for a while now that like indies have been holding up the 3D platformer as a genre for like really the last like 5-10 years. You talked a little bit about Out of Time here, and then when we were on the break in between, we were talking about The Big Catch, which is coming out later this year, which you said, I think a friend of yours is one of the lead developers on that game, right?
Yeah.
And
they were a coworker actually at Alchemy, and we kind of started the games at the same time.
Right. Do you have any rivalry between the two games that have big in the title that are 3D platformers coming out?
I wouldn't say we're rivals. I think we're kind of two sides of the same coin, or like complementary. Like Big Catch, if you've played the tackle box, like it's pretty hardcore and requires kind of it's very demanding and like requires high precision, and like I love that game. Like I'm a real sicko.
Yeah, me too.
But Big Hops is definitely like on the easier end of things and like intended to be accessible to kind of, like 8 or 9 year olds and up. And they're gonna have like definite moments of challenge there, but we want it to be accessible to as wide an audience as possible. Mm-hmm. And I think, if you're a young kid or like early teenager, like play Big Hops, and that'll graduate you to Big Catch. You should definitely play both of them.
I see what you did there. Play my game first, regardless. But I think that, obviously we talked about Fabras and Demon Tides, which is also coming out this year. That's something that's really exciting. It's just,
love those guys.
Yeah. And I think it's just so, and what's his name? What's the guy's name who kind of runs Fabras? I forget his name. I don't know if you remember right now.
I think his name is Fabras.
Maybe
that's his last name.
Yeah, but either way, like he's been such a cheerleader for the entire genre and for indies in general. Like I think like I've found so many 3D platformers that I'm looking forward to just from like Twitter threads that he's posted like over the years. Right. And I think it's just so great to see that. And it's just such a great time to be a fan of this genre. And like I said, I started playing this game and, because we'd known each other, or we'd briefly met at least a little bit, you and I, both living here in Austin and kind of being part of similar circles. But it's like, I didn't really know what I was going to be getting into when I played the demo, and it definitely shot up to one of the ones I'm most excited for. And you say that, it's like, because Big Catch, like that's a game that I'm very pumped for as a platformer sicko. Where it's like, I love banging my head against something until it like finally works, and the kind of that style of game is great. But then, this is definitely a lot easier and a lot more approachable, I guess you could say. But it also does feel like it has a lot of that expression. You can play it any way you want. And it's like, that's, I think, something that makes like Mario Odyssey great is like, you can just run forward and jump and grab the thing, or you can toss your hat, do a long jump, do a spin, and then bounce off a wall and do all this kind of stuff. So I think that that's something that I really appreciate about this. And I hope that even if you're not a platformer sicko, like we've said a couple times, like me or Chris here, I think there's probably something that you'll find as well. Is there anything else you want to talk about the game before we wrap it up here, Chris?
I would rather shout out some other platformer games for people to check out. Maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm definitely a sicko for them, and I want to see them kind of blossom as a genre. Tall Trails is one that deserves a lot of attention. That's also made in the Chicago scene by a friend of mine named Brady. And the premise of that game is you're like a little guy, a little golem who's trying to find out what his purpose is. And he has a boot on his back, and you can stuff sort of found objects from all around the world into your boot. And when you sort of double jump, you like launch items out of your backpack to get like extra jumps. And all the items you can find have different abilities to like give you different kinds of jumps. That game is really sick and like has surprisingly rich design space, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of my friends, Cadet, is working on a sort of like a 3D Zelda dungeon maker. And this game is called Nutty Dungeons. And it's like, it also is a 3D Zelda maker, but like the base moveset and platforming and stuff in it is like really, really slick and good and evokes like Sly Cooper and like there's a Neopets like PS2 game that really inspires them. Play Big Catch the Tackle Box as well, because that's like the angel and devil. That's like the devil Big Hops, and you're like the angel Big Catch. So
it's like the big brother.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Great stuff. I've been singing that game's praises for a while, so I'm glad to hear you're also a fan. All right, well, I think that's gonna do it for our main topic here on Big Hops. Definitely check out that Kickstarter. Like I said, we'll have a link in the description of this episode. And with that, we're gonna take a short break, and when we come back, we're gonna be talking all about the other games that we've been playing this week. So I mainly have been playing so much shit on Switch 2. Really, if I'm being realistic, like every week it would just be like, I've been playing Picross and Tetris 99, because I certainly have been. But other than that, I have been playing some other games. I finished Indiana Jones pretty much the night after we recorded our last episode. I had an amazing time with that game. I really recommend everybody play Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I hope that comes to Switch 2 as well. Other than that, though, I've been playing so much Mario Kart World. There's lots with this game that I wish was different. And I think that there are lots of like dropped balls with this game. A lot of that being the kind of the single player. I feel like they made an incredible like open world, and they made all these amazing side quests and like forgot to make a game for it in some ways, like in the free roam. I feel like it's a bit of a missed opportunity for like a single player experience there. That having been said, that's my big caveat. I love this game. I think this game is incredible. I'm having so much fun with it. I love playing online with people. I love playing online in general with randoms. There's just so much fun that I'm having, unlocking all the costumes and doing everything like that. So definitely having a ton of fun still with Mario Kart World. I don't know that it's like the Breath of the Wild of the Switch 2. I think that, that was the must-have game, really. But I think that Mario Kart World is a game that everybody who owns a Switch 2 will eventually have, the same way that it was with Mario Kart 8. And then I do want to give a quick shout out to Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I've been playing this game a little bit more, getting back into this game since it got that performance patch and the graphics update. Because I never beat this game. I think I got to like the Farron woods, I think it was like there was like a Farron temple with all the like shrubs, and I just got like really lost and frustrated and then put it down. And I picked it back up, and now I'm actually starting to make some progress again. So I've been really enjoying getting back into that as well. But what about you, Summer? What have you been playing recently?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was really busy this past week, so I didn't really play much besides Mario Kart. Mario Kart was what we were playing a lot together. Managed to unlock mirror mode while I was on the flight back last night.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, well, I don't want to play mirror mode right now. So funny thing for me personally anyway, I was like, I couldn't get the beginning of Yakuza 0 like out of my head, like the opening of it. So I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to boot up Yakuza 0. So I opened up my Switch 2 case. I pulled out one of the 2 red cartridges that I thought was Yakuza 0. And then it was Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. And I was like, well, this is what I've already pulled out of my case. So yeah, okay, I guess I'll start this instead. And I, again, haven't played a Rune Factory game before. Have played several Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons games. The game's really smooth. I also did get specifically the Switch 2 version, which means that you get to use mouse mode when you are doing like just anything tile related, which is common with farming games.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's going to be true of the new Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons game that's coming out later this year. And wow, that actually is a literal game changer, being able to use mouse mode for anything, because you're able to be so much more like precise and quick. Just in a game where, you know, it's on a real-time clock, that's huge, being able to like snap off and use mouse mode. But otherwise, it is visually gorgeous in handheld mode. Haven't played it docked yet. The characters are really gorgeous. There are jiggle physics, which I don't think I've ever seen in a Marvelous game before. I was like, it was a little bit of a jump scare. I was like, oh, wow, okay. And all she did was like throw her arm out, and it was like a boogo gong. And I was like, you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah.
And
a little awkward on the plane, but that's okay.
Yeah. No, see, that happened to me at the ramen shop at lunch today, actually.
Okay, got it.
No, yeah, but it looks pretty. I'm excited to play more of it. Yeah, it's cool. Feeling good for farm games.
Were you playing mouse mode on the plane?
No, I was playing it at the ramen shop today.
Got it. That makes sense.
Right, so I'm like, I'd like take a bite, and then I'd like grab my Joy-Con, and I'm like doing it on the counter, and then like my server came up to me and was like, "That's the Switch 2," and I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Where did you buy it?" I was like, "Best Buy." And he's like, "Really?" Yes.
Let's go. It's the Karen on the rooftop moment, IRL. What about you, Chris? You been playing anything interesting this week?
That's good. Yeah, I got a couple. The Consume Me demo was a good Next Fest pick. I guess to explain it, it's like an autobiographical game by a designer named Jenny out of NYU, and it's about her experience as a high schooler, like feeling like a loser and hating her body, and trying to like spend a summer like doing the right things to like control her weight, but it's kind of got silly mini games in it, and it's very Persona like in its RPG kind of format. And I don't need to say more than that. Like, you should definitely check it out. And then the other game I've been playing lately is called Barotrauma, which couldn't be farther from Big Hops, but this is like a deep sea submarine simulation game that's like kind of a horror game, and is like a co-op online multiplayer, like trying to manage all the parts of a submarine and not die as you like explore a giant underwater ocean full of monsters. And that game is like what if QWOP mixed with Spelunky mixed with like the deepest simulation game you could think of. I don't know. It's surprising me because it's not at all my genre generally, but it's like one of the most emergent systems I've seen. So feeling inspired by that lately.
Very cool. Yeah, that sounds awesome and interesting. I'm a big Spelunky fan, so anything with competing systems is very exciting to me.
Yeah.
But all right, I think that's going to do it for this episode on Big Hops. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was such a delight to have you. I'd like to also thank MilkyWay.co for doing our website. Thank you to Corduroy for doing our music. Thanks to all of our patrons on Patreon. And if you'd like to find me online, I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji.
You can find me at We Bewitched.
And what about you, Chris? Where can people find you online?
I think on Blue Sky, it's at luckshotgames.com. And then Twitter, if you're still there, is Chris Wade __. I also wanted to shout out DraftKings. Thanks for...
Yeah, thanks to DraftKings for setting up this whole thing and paying all of us out very handsomely for this episode. That was very, very nice. And then, of course, like we've said multiple times, we'll have links to the Kickstarter for this game in the episode description. And definitely check out the demo on Steam. Is that demo staying up?
The demo will be up for a while.
Okay.
It's about an hour long, so schedule your time.
Yeah, it was a nice beefy demo with multiple areas in it. I was very excited to see that, so definitely check that out. If you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Blue Sky and Twitter, at Super Switch Headz on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We have a website, switchheadz.com, and we have a Facebook group, a Discord, and a Patreon. We'll have links to all three of those in the description of this episode. Whether you're watching it on YouTube or listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Leave us a comment on Spotify or YouTube, and like and subscribe over there. And then, we'd love it if you would join the Discord. Such a wonderful community of like-minded gamers. We'd love to have you there. If you're a fan of listening to the show, you're going to be a fan of posting in the Discord. So join us over there and join the conversation. That's going to do it. What a fantastic episode. It was such a delight. We're going to be back next week with another banger of an episode, so don't touch that dial. But in the meantime, gang, you guys know the drill. Be safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Download the demo for this game, man. It's so fucking fun. I'm not blowing smoke. This is a really great game. We love you very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.